Alright, welcome back to the stream. This one might not be super long. I know I've been streaming a little more than usual the past few days. We actually have a lot of bot to assemble, so there's certainly some content. I was experimenting with taking the chat box off that front title card, but I was realizing that's also how I know when the chat box actually works correctly. Anyway, welcome back. A slightly different microphone setup here so that I can roam around a bit and also maybe ignore some more of the room noise. You might notice there is a little bit of music in the room, and this is partly I'm kind of curious how many decibels does it actually take for the YouTube copyright flagger robot to actually take something down. So this is me doing my best to exclude the copyrighted content. Let's see if they still take down this stream. We'll find out. But anyway, welcome back, anyone who's showing up. We already have a comment from, I'm struggling to pronounce your username, sorry. Abtastlamet, I think. Asks why I'm streaming so late. It's like 3 in the morning where they are, and they have university in the morning. I'm sorry, I know that it's probably terrible times in a lot of time zones. That's how time zones work. But I don't currently have a schedule. I just try to stream at various times. But I should do some more that are in the morning for me here so that they're less late for people. So I appreciate the feedback. I often just stream whenever it's convenient over here, but if it's convenient for you at a different time, let me know, and I'll try to take that into account. And there's also always archives. You probably already know about this, but if you go... So actually on Twitch, like right as soon as the stream ends, you can access the archives and view the stream from the beginning. In YouTube, you need to wait a few hours for them to re-encode the video, but then they'll have a regular video upload that you can watch with the stream. Oh, I see. The name I was struggling to pronounce was actually a German translation of my name for some reason. But okay, I'll take it. And then Johnny in YouTube chat says that it's perfect timing for them. They just got home. Well, that's cool. Glad that time zones sometimes work out well. So we've got a bunch of robot assembly to do. Let's see, let's switch to the mobile camera. This is Cloud. He's the cat in the box recovering from his leg surgery. And I was going to maybe start the stream with letting him out and hanging out with him a bit because he's just been jonesing to play. I think maybe he is actually still. I thought he was going to stay asleep, but... Because he loves, he's like feeling much better. He's not feeling like his leg hurts, as far as I can tell. He just wants to be a cat. And I'm just being the mean cat mom, keeping him from going outside while he heals. But... got to let him out some, both because otherwise it would be super mean, and so that he has some gradual recovery. Good job, boy. You are such a big cat. Oops. So I know there's a little more background audio or background noise in this stream or in this audio. It's just the cheap wireless microphone I'm using for the most part. Yeah, tempting fate with the music. Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where, like, if I'm sharing the space, do I actually have to ask everyone to completely turn off their music anytime I'm broadcasting anything through YouTube, or can I get away with something like this, is kind of my question. So maybe this will help me answer it. He has this huge meaty tail that he just fluffs around back and forth all the time, but especially when he's enjoying himself. Bonk. Robert says, finally a weekend stream. I was streaming last night. I think that counts as the weekend too. I don't know why I didn't get my stuff together to stream earlier today. I was doing some more bot assembly. I just couldn't quite be around humans. Hey Cloud, do you want pets? Hey Fuzzboy. You don't like mint tea, do you, cat? Oh, are you going to be stealing the other cat's food? I don't think anybody has food out. Yeah, the other food is all eaten. That's fine. He's been on a bit of a diet, and so last time I took him out, or maybe the time before, I wish he wouldn't do that. He was starting to get into the other cat's food. Hey, Cloud, stop that. And then, I mean, you know, whatever, he's cheating on his diet, but then that also caused the other cats to kind of take issue with this, and he ended up in a small fight with Tuco. You know, just enough to like cause him to run around a bit, such that he really shouldn't be doing that with his leg recovering, you know. Oh, I don't know how clear that came through, but there's some birds outside. I think the cats are going to be super into that. Yeah, I think this is going to be a relatively short stream, both because I don't have a ton of time for this right now, and because I want to make this kind of an experiment about the audio. But we'll hang out with Cloud a bit, and then I want to get into more of the bot assembly. I finished adding all of those plastic pieces that we were working on last night when I was getting frustrated with the M3 nuts. And now it mostly needs wiring, although it has a few mechanical things to do still here and there, like one thing we could start with is putting in these heat set M3 nuts into the plastic. Those hold the, really all the circuit boards. The motor controller board and the microcontroller board both use those M3 nuts. Ryan suggests that Cloud might like some catnip tea. That's interesting. I haven't tried giving the cats catnip tea. They seem to like it dry. So yeah, just more putting stuff into plastic. I finally, took care of all the super annoying parts, like just scraping stuff out and trying to fit those terrible M3x35 bolts into the holes that are just barely the right size for them. And so far, Cloud's behaving himself. Also, pretty much all of these cat caretaking moments can double as Q&A in case anybody has just like on-topic or off-topic questions. With the wireless mic, it is kind of nice. I don't know if anybody can tell, but I can just kind of like wander around the shop and talk and keep an eye on Cloud. Wow, an SPI flash at 80 megahertz does seem pretty interesting. This is so David Menuchiri, is that right? In chat asks for suggestions or tips on dumping an 80 megahertz SPI chip. So you can't easily remove it, so I'm assuming that's why you can't just talk to it yourself. And it's in circuit, and that's too fast for a Salia Logic 16. Yeah, and so he goes on to say he was thinking of maybe capturing pieces of it on the scope. There isn't enough memory for the full thing, and then stitching it back together over multiple captures. Yeah, I've thought about doing that for stuff in the past. It sounds super annoying, and I've never actually gotten to the point where I had to do it. Because like I would probably, at that point, I would probably try to do something with an FPGA, or I would try to modify the circuit so that I can somehow separate the SPI flash from the circuit that's otherwise reading it, and then read it separately. Yeah, this is a very good task for FPGAs, and if you're not familiar with FPGAs already, then a project like this might be a decent excuse to learn them. Especially since, I mean, something like this doesn't sound like it would take that much logic, so you could, if you wanted to do a fairly small, kind of standalone design with Verilog, or, for example, and then you could use the open source the ice storm toolchain to compile that with actually a pretty minimal amount of fuss and downloading and just every other headache that usually comes with FPGA toolchains, and get that onto one of the Lattice like HX1K or HX8K chips. And those you can get cheap eval boards. Like the HX1K is the smaller one, but you can get an eval board called the iStick that's literally just $20, and it's a great little starter FPGA platform. And those are great if you have like a bundle of logic that you want to do. It's a little small for system on chip type stuff. The HX8K might be better for that. But then the other small board that I've been using lately and really enjoying is the Papilio Pro from Gadget Factory. And it uses a somewhat older Xilinx FPGA, but there's just a lot of nice support that you can find for it now. I mean, it comes with tools for a variety of skill levels, so there's kind of an Arduino-ish IDE. You can use it with the regular Xilinx tools. And then this Python-based thing that I'm using called MyGen, and the system on chip based on that called MySock. They already have nice support for this board, and it's like $80. Hey, cat. You want in the closet, don't you? Oh yeah, and then Robert suggests scripting the oscilloscope, which he seems to be suggesting because it sucks. That's well, I've been meaning to do that with mine. I still have not had a project where I ended up scripting the scope. I've had some long data captures where I wanted to get aggregate data over a long time, but this being a YouTube channel, I ended up time-lapsing it, so that gave me most of the data that I needed. Oh, hello, Hedgeberg. I was just watching your stream earlier today. That was today, right? Days are so hard sometimes. That was part of why I wasn't streaming earlier. It was too captivating. Ryan asks if I have an opinion on the tiny FPGA boards. They've got a board with the ICE40 LP8K. I'm not familiar with that chip. I don't know if that one specifically is supported by the open source ice storm tools, but if it is, it sounds fun. If it isn't, I don't know if I've even used the official Lattice tools at all. I like the open source ones. That's why I got interested in the chips. Hedgeberg confirms that was today. Yeah, that was great. Hedgeberg says that she was just dicking around in C. I mean, there is a very short and continuous path, as far as I can tell, from dicking around in C to writing the entirety of a computer operating system. Because C kind of makes you think about operating systems when you really use it to do the entirety of your, well, when you deal with the edge cases of how your code interacts with the system, and it's in C, C makes you think about operating systems at that level, I think. And so, yeah, I think that's super relevant. And writing printf from scratch is something I was just recalling all the times I've done that and trying to remember all the reasons. And I think some of them might have just been for fun, and some of them were oh, I needed this very specific thing, and so there were a couple times when I was writing it from scratch, specifically trying to make it very small, for example. And so I was trying to I would like look at the disassembly of the newlib printf and try to figure out like why algorithmically was this big and how could I simplify it. And so that was a little bit of what went into the metal kit printf, because I had a couple of sort of, I guess kids these days call that code golf, when you're trying to just play a game to get your code as small as possible or something. I had something that I was doing like that, where I was trying to fit this tiny kind of operating system-y thing, like a little library that you can compile your code with to speak to some like basic PC x86 peripherals. And there was a thing I was using that it was like an Easter egg, where I needed that to be very small because I was going to combine that and an application in just a couple of kilobytes. It was basically the demo scene, except it wasn't really released in that form. Oh, you shouldn't really be running that much, but I can't really predict when he's going to run for most of the time. I don't know. This whole like thing where he's supposed to get progressively more activity to help his leg heal, I don't know how effective I am at it. So far, I mostly have just been trying to, like, mostly the control I have is like when is he in the box versus not in the box, and trying to pay attention to him when he's not in the box. But he's such a cat. Such a cat. Ah, Sigrock. I missed how that came into the conversation. Oh, Ryan asked if there's support in Sigrock for the scope that this is David with the 80 megahertz SPI that David's using. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder. I have not looked at I've like looked at the page for Sigrock and like what devices are supported, but there's always so many that I only tend to remember the ones that I've used. And so far, that's the Salia Logic 16. Hey, buddy. You don't want to go down the hallway, right? That's not very interesting, and my camera doesn't reach down there. Hedberg says Cloud is excited to have a leg again. Yeah, definitely. This guy was pretty much down a limb. Like, he was just keeping all of his weight off of that leg and holding it up and out of the way, and he was basically a three-legged cat. And then he had that cast on, which was kind of even worse in some ways. And he was so happy to get the cast off. And then he was just kind of like on pain meds for a little while after that. But then, after he had healed for like a week or so, and especially when he got his sutures out and got the cone off, he started being much more of a regular cat. Everybody really liked it when he got the cone off, because then he got to start grooming himself again. He got to, oh man, that cone. He was not very good at the combination of cone and litter box. That made a few messes. That was pretty gross. So yeah, good to have the cone off. Yeah, K. Temkin says, I can't even count the number of times I've written enough of a libc that I could stick some existing library as is into some low-level code. And implementing just enough of printf is always fun. Yeah. And then she goes on to say, the most fun is when you accidentally make a small error in your libc implementation and don't find it until the library code starts working weird in odd cases. That thing that you've described is pretty much the exact feel of making a virtual machine, or making an operating system that has to run like binaries from another existing platform. Like, you always find these weird edge cases, and then the thing that you're debugging is some other person's complicated stack of software misbehaving because of something that you got wrong deep inside. And so that's I like those debugging problems for some strange masochistic reason, so here we are. Oh no, device out of space. Oh, nice. Tsunami One in chat says, wow, this is the first time I've checked out your live stream, and I'm loving the level of geekery. Well, cool. I'm glad that just some conversation and staring at cats has been so interesting so far. Or maybe you were referring to all the more interesting content. But yeah, I try to keep it interesting here. Oh, Ryan says he spotted Cloud hunting a fly. Yes, I hadn't quite noticed what he was so intent at. Yeah, Cloud was hunting flies this morning when I had him out of the box too. And it was actually kind of gross, because he hunted this fly and caught it. And then he would like stick it in his mouth and kind of chew on it and then like spit it out. and then poke at it, and then just repeat this process a few times, and then leave it on the ground for me. Which I think is a very cat thing to do, but I didn't really appreciate it. David's a dog person. That's cool. I like dogs too. I think cats and I more get along, like we kind of get each other more. Whereas with dogs, they're great. I like dogs, but I don't know if I could really bond with a dog the same way I feel like I have with Tuco. Okay, Timkin says, yeah, I keep crawling back to doing virtualization things every time I swear it off. I feel a little bit like that too. I've like burned out on that stuff pretty badly and thought like, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never writing a virtual machine. Like I felt that way after VMware. I felt that way after Siftio. And I'll probably write more virtual machines. I don't know. Who knows? Oh, David says, I can't bond with being allergic to cats. Yeah, no, that's pretty real. Although I do have a friend, he was actually a high school roommate ages ago. Yeah, he and I shared an apartment back in Boulder, and we don't really keep in touch anymore, but we did actually for a while stay in touch when he moved from Boulder to like the Bay Area also, and we were nearby. And I always knew him as being super allergic to cats, and he would always make excuses for not being able to like interact with animals, and he just like would get super allergic, and then what do I know, like he and I like drift apart, and I hadn't seen him for a while. We're catching up, and he has a cat. It's he just apparently found some allergy meds that work really well for him, and fell in love with this cat, and that kind of happened. I think I am slightly allergic to cats, but obviously I still hang out with them. I'm a little bit more allergic to Cloud than I am to Tuco. Sorry I'm failing at the focus here. I need to get my face closer to the monitor. Did you catch it? Oh, he did. Now he's doing the same thing where he just spat it out. Thanks, Cloud. So he just hunts these for the fun of it. Or maybe he likes the taste. Maybe there's like some juice he extracts by munching on them and then spitting them out. I don't know. He's such a weird creature. Aw, Ryan Boots says, that's a bit worse than my ex's cat. He used to drown toys and bugs in his water dish. Sometimes I find Tuco's bolts in his water dish, but I don't think he puts them there on purpose. I think usually he puts them there next to the water dish, and the ones that are in the water are the ones that I throw badly and they bounce there. Aw, Len's allergic to cats, otherwise they'd probably have one. Oh yeah, Tsunami1 says, well, the discussion of rewriting things from scratch and the unique challenges you run into in the process is understandable. The general pursuit of unique problem solving is always enjoyable in my book. It's so rewarding when you succeed as well. I agree totally. And that was a lot of how I learned about this stuff part of it was taking stuff apart, and part of it was thinking, well, I bet I could make one of those, and then just trying to figure out what was involved in making one of those. And that was, I spent years of my life making a stupid embedded GUI for PDAs or whatever that nobody really even used really much of. And it was a bunch of time to invest, and it was kind of a silly thing to make, but it taught me so much. Like, it was my first experience of like really seriously considering what it was like to write a core part of the operating system, or the OS environment at least. And then I had other projects where I would write like a bootloader from scratch, or write like task switching from scratch, that kind of thing. Hey, don't be eating that, little dude. You shouldn't eat plastic. That's my job. Catching flies apparently is his job, though. I've just got to use the moire in the carpet to focus, because I can kind of see that on the monitor here. I was just scrolling back in chat, and Ryan says you literally had a roommate back in Boulder. Did you steal their mattress? I don't understand that reference. Oh, I guess it's a song lyric? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that one, sorry. And Kate Temkin asks if I always had this bright red shelving unit. No, that's part of what I was doing this morning, was helping move this in. This was something that that a friend was graciously no longer using and giving to us, and she even brought it over. So we have a couple of these shelves. There's one down here and one upstairs. I don't know where they're going to eventually end up, but they have casters, so they could stay down here, but that's a little bit temporary. It is just now the brightest object in the room. Cloud, was that meow to tell me about that fly? Cloud has the softest voice. Oh yeah, Hedgeberg uses the Zyrtec on the dust mite allergies and the animal allergies. Yeah, I've had good luck with that too. Yeah, one of my friends ages ago, well, one of my exes actually, so we spent a lot of time together, had, like, I think they were probably dust mite allergies, and then, yeah, he used a lot of Zyrtec, and then I used it for a while too, and that helped with the animals. Ah. Tsunami One says, that's not a shelving unit, that's a cat cubby. Yeah, it totally could be. I don't want Cloud climbing around on it, but I bet the other cats would really enjoy it. I think the other cats are probably both upstairs right now. Hedgeberg asks if I've turned on a radio in the last 2 years. Probably not, actually. I used to use radios more when I had a car, but nowadays I get most of my music from the internet, if not pretty much all of it. Tsunami One says, I've never gotten that low level. I might one day, though. Yeah, it can be fun for sure. And I mean, it's this is actually slightly related to what I wanted to get at in this talk that I've been stressing out about planning. But you know, it's like when you see computer systems from the outside, especially if you have mostly a software background, it can be easy to think of. If you've ever seen like an architecture diagram in like an OS book or like a specification or anything, they usually have like layers of bricks that are built on top of each other. And you can imagine, oh, well, the lowest brick is the processor, and then there's a brick on top of that that's the operating system, and then there's a brick on top of that that's this library. And it's a great way to sell stuff to management, but it doesn't actually reflect how things work. And even less so when you start thinking about boundaries that don't solely exist within the software world. Yeah, K. Timken says they think they would have remembered something that bright being in here. Yeah, it is a bright object. Well, and there are some other bright objects like the cushions over there, but they tend to be smaller. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like Kay Temkin's answer, who says, I like phrasing it as, pick something you think is black magic and then try implementing one of those. That's really good advice. I like that. I remember, it reminds me of an experience I had like that with debuggers. Well, actually, yeah, debuggers and bootloaders and a lot of stuff like that. It's like, well, I guess I should try making one of those. Like, if you think GDB is magic, then maybe try writing something that just calls ptrace on Linux and attaches to another process and makes it do stuff. Yeah, totally. Yeah, Hedgeberg and K. Temkin are both full of truth here. Hedgeberg says hardware is software and software is hardware is the thing. The application informs the design and the design informs the application. For sure, that's something that I really hope I can help people understand about abstraction boundaries is, you know, I mean, they're obviously they're obviously well, they are themselves an abstraction because they're not really these clear boundaries. Nobody ever creates the kind of separation they're really hoping for with the layering system that's being designed, or at least it rarely happens. And there are always leaks around the abstractions. That's why you have so many classes of security problems. And yeah, the abstraction boundaries are always bidirectional. You don't just design this thing in a vacuum and then expect someone else to use it. It's always both sides pushing back and forth and defining like something they can agree on, basically. That's all it is. It's some common ground that people may have decided to write down, hopefully. But then the real world is you've got all of these complex components forming kind of a squishy boundary. And K. Temkin adds, abstraction's a hell of a drug. Yep. Wow, Tuco's behaving. Or, sorry, Cloud. Wow, see what I did there? No? Oh, nice. No, it's cool. I don't mind the pop culture reference. I was just oblivious. On that mattress that you stole from your roommate back in Boulder. We ain't never getting older. Yeah. I don't think speaking the lyrics for a song I don't even know the melody to can trigger the bot, but we'll see. This is an experiment. Oh, I think this, the phone dings or something I need to pay attention to. This is the phone giving me the important news that they're out of the beer that we wanted. So sad. Oh. Hey, Zach. Alright, see you later. Cloud. Oh, we have Cloud and Tuco back again. Oh, no, don't climb up there, dude. Alright. Yeah, it's much easier to deal with Cloud when Tuco and Luna are both upstairs, unfortunately. I think K. Temkin says, I love discussions of the way we think about systems and abstraction and how that informs exploration of the conceptual space. Yeah, I agree. That's right, I was going to turn on some more lights over here. Oh yeah, just a couple of comments here that I missed from YouTube chat earlier while I was roaming around away from that monitor. Luke Atterbury says, VMware admin here, don't stop with the VMs. Oops, and here I am pushing the buttons. Yeah, well, I don't think I'd go back and work for them anymore. I think I'm done with that, but VMs in general are pretty neat. And Tim Williams, says, I remember thinking RF was black magic. It's really just complex numbers and polynomial roots. Yeah, which themselves might seem like black magic, but actually there's some pretty nice, this is also maybe a little bit off topic, but like so much of this does kind of come back to math, and, you know, like there's the old, like, sort of stereotype that engineering involves tons of math and whatever. And then there's kind of the more modern realization that, well, actually, it doesn't necessarily. There's so much stuff that we do with technology that doesn't really involve math the way most people think about math. It's really more about just, like, learning how to translate problems into different spaces. And so, you know, you end up being able to do so much with computers without the math, but then the math is actually still useful for fields that are math heavy, like, if you're doing anything physical, if you're doing things with robotics or graphics or spatial anything, then it helps to have at least some linear algebra, at least some calculus. And so it's been really encouraging to see more resources for just making it easier for just folks to browse around on the internet and learn that stuff. And one of those that I found recently was a YouTube channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown. This guy just does great animations of like linear algebra and calculus and other math concepts, and he's quite good at it. Tim Williams. Sorry, I keep stumbling on the words. Tim Williams says math is the ultimate abstraction. It's fully abstract reasoning for the sake of reasoning. It's no wonder that it's the perfect tool for use with abstracting things. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Oh, and he also adds 3 Blue 1 Brown is great. Yeah, I found out about that recently when they did the crossover with Minute Physics, and now I'm a happy subscriber. Luis was asking what the name of the math channel is again. I can show you on the screen, actually, since I'm over here at the computer desk. If I switch to the right video channel. I don't know what the name is a reference to. You can kind of see it in their logo, but I assume it's something really nerdy that I don't get yet. So this is the channel, 3 Blue 1 Brown. They're also on YouTube and Patreon. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, I encourage folks to explore this on your own. Oh, especially this one. This is one of my favorites, this quantum light video they did recently. Anyway, let's keep an eye on the cat. Hey, you. Hedgeberg says, I mean, to be fair, math is all I do at my job because I do circuit design, and circuit design is really just math. Yeah, that was a lot of why I didn't finish my electrical engineering degree. Yeah, that's an interesting point from K. Temkin, who says, math's great. I think the issue in education wasn't, hey, you need math. It was the conflation between the concepts themselves and the tools we use to work with those concepts. Yeah, I had trouble with just the way a lot of the concepts were approached, and, so much of it was just like, here's some facts. You're expected to know these infinitely well without caring about why, and then later we'll tell you how things actually fit together. Whereas I just find that completely just a bogus way to learn. It doesn't actually help you build the conceptual frameworks in your head. It just gives you a bunch of pieces that rattle around until you can figure out how to connect them later. Oh yeah, and then Hedgeberg also points out Numberphile and Computerphile. Yeah, those are great channels too. They're kind of like interviews with explanations broken out, and it's a good format. Yeah. Kate Timken says that they have a bunch of textbooks that say the BJT circuit, the common transistor that you would learn about, follows this equation, which isn't a particularly useful way of teaching how to think of the behavior. Yeah, exactly. So I would see that stuff in school and think, well, okay, I'll file this away for later when I need to write an equation about my circuit. But this doesn't actually help me understand it. And the thing that helped me understand it was the stuff I had much earlier before I went to college, where I was just, reading other people's schematics and experimenting with my own circuits and trying to get a feel for how the components worked. And then, of course, you need math to do so much that's actually useful with electrical engineering, but without having some appreciation for how the parts behave before you get to that level, I just couldn't maintain the interest. Oh, interesting. Hedgeberg's using kind of numbering the abstractions, which seems like it might be helpful. Yeah, I mean, another interesting thing is Well, when you're teaching someone who's new at the subject, you want to be able to give them the fully useful conceptual framework, like, well, this is the best understanding of how things actually work, especially something like physics, where there are so many simpler yet also wrong ways of approaching it. And I can imagine, a lot of the challenge is trying to figure out, well, how do you come up with just a way into that complex framework that's not very misleading, hopefully not at all misleading, but still gets you there. Yeah, Tsunami One points out that you need to see the whole process. You need the start point and the goal. If you just see the tiny pieces without the goal, it's super confusing. I felt that way about the entire educational system, because it just seemed obvious to me that the thing, like, I was learning stuff when I wasn't in school, and then in school it was mostly just the teachers being mean and trying to maintain control of the classroom, and I didn't really see a whole lot of learning happening, and so it was kind of hard to see that as the goal. Oh, interesting. Hedgeberg has a recommendation for a semiconductor physics textbook from Chen-Ming Hu. Oh, that's nice. Kate Timken used to start off their analog electronics course by demonstrating the Ohm's law as an approximation. And so, if you're familiar at all with electronics, you've probably come across Ohm's law, V equals IR. And it works for things that are linear and that have just a plain old resistance. It doesn't work for storage elements like capacitors or inductors, where you're converting some of that energy into a different form temporarily. And transmission line is a great example. So like a chunk of coaxial cable, you get a great demonstration of how all this is a conductor and an insulator, but it has this behavior as if it's, you can model it as a bunch of capacitors and inductors, but it's just some cable, and that's a nice illustration, I think. I like that from Adderzo2, who says it's the same on the professional level. You get a sense for what's going wrong on what OSI level after a few dozen years of troubleshooting. Yeah, I guess a lot of it is like pattern matching, like what kinds of problems tend to come from what levels of abstraction having a problem. And that's like why you see a lot of people get really confused by computers, I think, is you see mostly these top couple of layers of abstraction that you end up using, and then if anything goes wrong below that, then it's just super confusing for everyone because you probably don't even have a way of reporting those errors. I think that's why glitch art is so neat. It exposes the kind of confusing parts of that abstraction layering. It shows you what goes wrong on the higher levels when you mess up one of the lower levels. And I guess what's happened with the internet and the explosion of memes and everything else is that the higher levels have gotten so much higher. Oh, interesting. Well, so Hedgeberg says that Ohm's law does work. V equals IR is the real portion of V equal IZ, which is the full Ohm's law model. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was assuming we were in kind of an earlier educational context where we were thinking about resistance as a real number, and we hadn't gotten into impedance yet. But Yeah, Hedgeberg's point is very valid that, like, the way electrical engineers actually do this is by generalizing resistance into a complex impedance, and then that actually works out. And then K. Timken says, Ohm's law only works if you have enough electrons to make the statistics converge on that linear equation. That's interesting. Hadn't thought of it that way before. And they say, but if you look at the reflection patterns, you can see the electron flow, which I think is a nice visual for the abstraction boundary. Okay, the demo was more about the settling behaviors as things reflect. Interesting. Oh, this cat is so enjoying freedom. He is so long and so big and fluffy. Is it possible I can get anything done on this desk without the cat getting into trouble? Sorry. Didn't mean to completely cover his face. Oh, yeah, he's gonna be wandering. Oh. I thought that text message was about the store being out of beer, but they just had it in bottles instead of cans, which is fine. He is playing with a bolt. Did you put it? Oh, wow, dude. This might be a little more activity than the doctors would prescribe, dude. Man, what a good cat. He just so wants to play right now. Oh, is that another bug? Maybe it was dust. Maybe it was dust that could have been bug-like. There is a bolt under there. Oh. Oh, okay. David reports that 3 Blue 1 Brown has an about page and it seems to be named after their eye color. That's neat. That would explain why it looks like an iris. Ah, welcome back. Oh, Tsunami One says 3D print your cat a giant bolt and nut. They have a good time with them usually. I did actually. I 3D printed some of those big old knurling nuts, and Tuco kind of liked them. Not as much as the little nuts. I liked them. I thought they were great. This guy seems to be plenty into the toys right now. I'm more concerned that he might have too much to play with for his leg recovery. But aw, Fred posted a picture of their cat looking at at Cloud. Aw. Oh, that's great. Cloud does seem to like it when those crows outside make some noise. I should really finish that cat cam so the cat cam can be automated. Like, look at how much work this is that I could be saving with robot automation. Hedgeberg said that's adorable. I agree. It is super adorable. Yeah, having this guy outside the box and still trying to keep tabs on his activity is quite a handful. But it does give me a good excuse to just have like a chat on the stream, which is nice. Let's see if I'm missing YouTube chat over here. Aw. Oh, we have some questions about which beer. I don't remember actually which ones we got. I think we got something new. Yeah, Chrono's explaining that Cloud broke his leg a few weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it happened, but, you know, one night off camera in the evening sometime, or, you know, during the night, he breaks his leg, and then we find him with a limp. We think it's a sprain, and we take him into the vet after, you know, a couple days of what seemed like good recovery. He's no longer actually doing so well. And then the vet's like, oh, it's probably a sprain. And then we get him x-rayed, and it's definitely not a sprain. And so he had some major leg surgery with plates and screws. Well, I think 1 plate and 5 screws. Aw, Chrono says Cloud is awesome. Yeah, and Tim says he doesn't seem to have any problems. Yeah, he's doing super well. Now, I've been so happy with how well he's recovering. I'm just trying to do my part in keeping him from injuring himself right away. Hey dude, what are you catching? That's a fly or a power cable? I think he's just interested in this thing. You know, if I can steal a glance while Tuco's a little out of the range, there's also, just for some context on the bot assembly process. So we have, where is it? There's one fully complete winch. It's over here. That's the first one that you've been seeing. Then I've got 3 more internal mechanisms here. And these are mechanically, I think they're done. I haven't really tested them. They definitely have not been load tested, but the gears all mesh fine. They need lubrication and load testing, but I figured it would make sense to do some of the wiring first. So the wiring goes on the bottom, and that's, you can see the empty space where the motor driver board goes. So we could be preparing those brackets to accept the motor driver. We could be preparing the motor drivers themselves. A couple options there. There's also the cases up here. Some flyer parts. There's flyer parts all over the place. I need to work on assembling the flyer. Alright, now we have to find the cat. Oh man, finding him after I leave him for a couple seconds is always a chore. Hey, Cloudster. Are you in here? That's not him. Oh no. I've been worrying less about him getting a little bit out of sight lately just because it's been like a couple weeks since the surgery and trying to do that ramping up his activity thing, but when I just can't find him, it's frustrating. Is he back here? No. Did he go upstairs when I wasn't looking? Well, I need to see if he's upstairs, probably. He could be in the bathroom. Hey, did Cloud come up here? I just see Tuco. Oh, there he is. Okay, not upstairs, just hiding somewhere. I wonder where he was. There he is. I realized the music was probably slightly louder when I was up there. That'll be another part of the experiment, I guess. See what it takes to get this video taken down. Aw, dragon with beer. I like that. Drinky the dragon. He likes those bolts, actually. That's pretty neat. Also does not seem to swallow them, which is cool. Oh. Oh, nice. Well, I think this headset probably just is not very sensitive. But if I was going to try to find a nicer wireless headset, I wonder if there are some that have like 2 mics for environmental counseling, because that might be interesting. That sounds expensive though. This is currently a really cheap wireless mic. I actually did a mod on it on one of my really early videos where I made the output suck slightly less. Oh yes, one asks about or says to look at the mic's pattern. That would be true, because that's like the mechanical way of canceling environmental noise. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I even had a pattern specified for the one I'm wearing right now, but if I were to look for a nicer one, that would be a thing to shop for, I think. Okay, I'm getting a little tired of standing around watching the cat. Maybe we put the cat back in the box and do some work. Oh yeah, Travis Watson asks if that's the pile I'm still using. Yeah, this is the pile. The name says it all, right? Yeah, I've got a nicer headset mic that is wired, and so I've been trying that out a little, but that's not what I'm using right now, because for walking around with the cat, the wireless is kind of what I need. And then my day-to-day streams usually just use the single shotgun mic over the desk. Did you lose that bolt, Cloud? Maybe he's just hunting flies. I don't know. I'm getting tired, so let's move this stream on to the next phase. Hey, buddy. I'm sorry, but I think we need to put you back in the box for a little while. Oh, he is sharp. Oh, don't do that with your left hand. Hey, boy, don't do that with your left hand, especially. Hey, let go. Alright, sorry, Cloud. More outside later. Looks like we've also got some Tuco intimidation up here. What a pretty cat. I wonder if he's gonna stay there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, the mic is not good. Well, so the mic itself may be fine. The issue is that the wireless transceiver, the transmitter and the receiver, neither of them are very good. The receiver, even when the transmitter is off, is pretty noisy, and when it's on and just transmitting the noise floor, it's not so great either. So, oh, I might have a delivery coming slightly sooner than I expected tonight. You may have heard me ramble about beer. My friend and I were ordering groceries since we don't have a car and it's hard to carry groceries home this far, so we'll often order them because it's a thing that you can do around here. Yeah, well, maybe Tuco will hang out there for a bit. Tsunami1 says the noise floor, even on professional wireless mics, isn't great. They just use a strong carrier to get around it. Alright. Well, should we start with the plastic or the circuits? I kind of feel like circuits right now. Can we do this without completely occluding Tuco? I just cut his neck off, which is not good for his image. Oh yeah, the Sennheiser units, those were more expensive than I wanted to pay for a mic, but if I was going to use the wireless mic as more just like my regular streaming mic, then maybe it would be worth just getting a really nice one. Oh, that's still cut off, sorry. Alright. Welcome to Teaville. Got the mint tea. We are servo AF. Tim Williams says, "What's in the box? What's in the box? What box? What box?" Oh, or was that what the cat was saying? I've lost track of context, I'm sorry. I've stripped the comment from context. Twitch chat is still pretty empty. Oh, that's a good question from David Smith on the Gitter chat, who says, is the Tuco Flyer going to have an internal model of the environment for terrain avoidance, or onboard sensors, or a combination? Yeah, that's a good question. It might eventually have a combination. Since obstacle avoidance and localization could just turn into these mammoth problems, I've been trying to kind of divide those up into phases, where first I do something simple, and then I improve upon that if I need to. So, yeah, I don't know if Tuco's somewhere Tuco's jumping around. So, I figured there'll be a phase 1 where I don't really have accurate localization. I just have So I'll have basically a very coarse localization from the strain gauges on the winch, which will be able to figure out where the weight is positioned, relative to the winches very roughly. And that'll be useful for figuring out if we're at the limits. Are we unable to move any further in this direction because we're already too far, that kind of thing. And then we'll also have feedback from the computer vision, so we can just track targets and move the camera around relative to something that the camera can see. So that's phase 1. I think that'll be enough to have a fun time, and it'll be relatively easy to implement. And then phase 2 is probably some form of position, like absolute position tracking. So probably the easiest thing to do there would be to use some modified lighthouse hardware. So that might be fun. Actually, this hasn't come up on stream before, but I've got actually some really interesting lighthouse stuff that Alan Yates sent me a while back, and it hasn't been it just hasn't really come up, but that could actually be a really nice starting point. We could modify some of the weird lighthouse stuff, and because I think there are going to be a couple things that need to be a little bit tweaked versus just a completely standard lighthouse thing. I think it might be better to have the base stations kind of up near the ceiling, kind of pointing down at the workspace. And it would be especially nice if they could coexist with other lighthouse systems, so that we could still use the regular lighthouse for games if I ever want to play a game, or I have this problem where I hack on games way more than I play them. Robert is asking if I can get dumps of the ICE 40-bit streams on the Vive Lighthouse. Maybe. But yeah, then K-Temkin also brings up another good point, that the furniture isn't really fixed position. So, we tend to move stuff a lot, and I could just be really diligent about updating the models, but right now my strategy has just been to use sensors. And I don't know how well that's going to work, but this is my best guess at the moment about what's going to work. So I had a couple of these LiDAR sensors that you could, they have a laser, they pulse the laser. It's a very, very short pulse of high-power light, and then they actually measure the phase of the response and calculate the distance that way. So I've got a few of those on the Tuco Flyer. There's 4 of them actually. There's 3 on the kind of saucer section of it, and then there's 1 on the gimbal mounted right next to the camera. So those I think will be useful for, in addition to the strain gauges telling us how close to the walls we are basically, these will help us know how close we are to the floor. So that'll be super useful, because I think basically the 3D movement control loop is going to look well, first of all, figure out how much adjustment we need in order to keep the height at the target we're looking for, and then after you've done that, add a kind of lower priority or a lower gain or something, then add in the motion vector that you're interested in after approximating how to divide it up into 4 different vectors for the 4 winches. But yeah, a z-axis hard limit is going to be part of it, honestly. Because even if you have all the sensors on the Flyer, if it knows everything about its environment, you still would need to figure out how to avoid the cords that run from the Flyer intersecting with anything else in the environment. Maybe I can demo this. So, if the Flyer was going to go all the way down to the floor, for example, which isn't really a design goal, but let's say it was just right next to Tuco, then I would have to worry about the cords cutting all the way across the room, and it would just be super in the way. It would be in the way of furniture, it would be in the way of people. So really, I want it to have a minimum Z height so that the robot would not get any further down than I really want the cords to be interacting with. So the simplest solution would be for just take something like the tallest height of all the furniture and people in the room, and that's now the lowest that the top of the robot can be at. And so now the top of the robot is where the cords attach. It's also where the sensors are located. So anything below that you can see, theoretically. Oh, I think I might have to go get a delivery. I'll be right back. Hi, is this thing on? Yeah, and now Tuke's in the hallway. Awesome. It's actually fine. He likes it here. But I don't currently have the camera, so I'll reach out here and... Yeah, so sorry about that. I thought that delivery was actually going to come like an hour later, and that I was going to beforehand, so... Now I'm going to bring Tuco back inside. And Tuco's sharp because he doesn't want to come back inside. Hey, Fuzzboy. Okay, well... I guess that worked. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me try to get back to the questions I was answering. So yeah, basically, I think I was trying to describe why Hedgeberg is pretty much right on the money with the z-axis hard limit. So my plan is to have the top section of the flyer just not be able to get below a certain height, and that'll be enforced by the lidars. And then Jay Carlson says, for purely large-scale obstacle avoidance, you can get away with ultrasonic transducers. Yeah, totally. Yeah, the ultrasonics are nice. You can get those, I think the really cheap ones that you can find on eBay for like $1 are the HCSR04, I think. Those are really cheap. They're also not very good. They're really noisy. They don't work at close range. But, you know, if you can get around those limitations, they are very cheap and they're easy to play around with. So definitely just get some to mess with if you are interested in ultrasonics. But keep in mind that, like, the parallax ping, which if you see that, it looks similar. You can easily confuse the two. And it looks like maybe that HCSR04 might be a clone of the ping. It's not. They're really different. They have a different electrical interface, and the ping is actually much nicer. But it's also a lot more expensive. It's like $30 instead of $3 or something along those lines. It is vastly more expensive. And then there are also sensors made by Maxbotics, which are also kind of pricey. They aren't just like cheap clones. But those are nice in some ways. I had trouble with them because their output is quantized. So instead of giving you kind of a noisy output and saying, well, this is only close, you know, this is only good to the nearest centimeter or something, they actually quantize it to centimeters, which makes it useless for user interface or for like velocity tracking or anything. Yeah, David Smith says to mitigate the cords hitting the train, you could have the winches move an XY platform at the ceiling level, and then have a crane moved in Z. Yeah, that's basically like bridge crane topology. And in fact, this building already has a bridge crane. It's not especially operable now that they put a bunch of walls in the middle, and I don't think the motor has power, but yeah. And then Jay is asking, I think this is my question, if there are encoders on the motors. Well, kind of. I have encoders on the rope. There's a separate capstan that measures the rope movement. So it's better than the encoder on the motor in some ways. It measures the actual rope motion. It's a little bit worse in some ways because it doesn't respond as quickly, so the control loop can't be as tight. But that's what I've got. In hindsight, it would have been nice to have an encoder on the rope and an encoder on the motor, or to use a drive capstan and a separate take-up motor. Those both might have been slightly nicer, but this prototype will do. I still don't know what box Tim Williams was talking about. I was just looking over the YouTube chat, and they're saying it's a nice nonlinear MIMO inverse kinematics control problem, which could probably apply to cats or robots. Can we get some Tuco on screen here? Tuco just climbed up behind here. Why are cats so often invisible on camera? Oh, there he goes. Alright, well, considering that I should probably put away the groceries and keep the stream the short, slightly weird stream that I guess it was always destined to be. I guess I could also put away the groceries and then do some soldering. I kind of want to do that. If you'll bear with me, maybe I will put a couple of things in the fridge really quick and then do some soldering, because that could be nice. Tuco is going to help. I don't think Tuco's helping. Actually, he and Luna are just battling over it, because I think anytime I'm in the kitchen, the cats interpret that as maybe being about food. Like their food, of course. Oh, that's right. This was a new beer. Oh, and there's celery and cheese. I don't actually like celery, but Zach does. Oh, there's a lot of cheese. Great. And Luna's interested. Hi. Is the fridge full of cabbage?
Yeah.
Cabbage and hummus. Okay, well maybe we can get to the actual electronics now. Oh, that's an interesting question from Mikey. Let me see if I can maybe turn on the other microphone. Not that I need to fuss with one more thing, but if I'm gonna be at the desk, maybe I could try this mic for a bit. How does that sound? I forget whether I turn this down a little bit. I think I might just not be in front of it as much, but... Alright, let's try this for a bit. Desk mic, belt pack off. Yeah, I was expecting to have to get the groceries like right after the stream, and then they came like an hour early, so total fail on my part, trying to cut things too close. But now we've got some circuit boards, which we could try working on. So, these are the motor controllers, same ones that you might have seen in the video about the first winch. This is the, oh, I keep forgetting the model number, the BTS 7630 or something along those lines. 7960. I don't know, it says BTN there and BTS on the datasheet, but they probably tell you in the datasheet. Interesting, different GAL and GBE on the package. I wonder what that means. Alright, so we've also got some of these dudes. It's tempting to go open up the other winch as a reference. I might actually do that. Oh, it's Microhex complaining about the Steadicam and something. I was seeing those comments at first and missed the context and thought that it was about the Tuco tripod. So let's try to open this before I lose all the wrenches. Ryan says tracking can definitely be a massive problem. Keep in mind Facebook basically hired several departments worth of professors, so the incremental approach seems wise. Yeah, I mean, you know, Facebook. What can I say? Probably nothing. Who can say anything about Facebook? And yeah, I mean, the Vive approach seems neat. It's certainly clever, and seems like it just took like a handful of really clever people and a bunch of time and hardware and lasers. This is, of course, the side where if I open it, it's actually a little hard to disconnect the LEDs. The connectors are at the other side. Oh yeah, PEI print bed. Highly recommend. I've had good luck with mine. Huh, maybe I should take the lights off. Well, not the lights out of the case, but like take the other half of the case off so I can get the lights disconnected. I probably will want this as a model for some of the other wiring, just to see like how did I do it on the first winch. So I guess I'll take the other half off. A pile of happy little M3x8s. Tim Williams says BTN and BTS equals package type. Probably they should be the same, I thought. Although it might be just P channel and N channel or something. Or sorry, I was getting confused. The BTN BTS was the datasheet versus what was on the package. So yeah, I agree about that. But the other marking, the one that was vertical on the package, I don't know what that one was and why it was different. I wonder if those were just different batches. They should be two half bridges, so they should both be identical. Oh yeah, modified COTS hardware, yeah, off-the-shelf stuff. Yeah, I mean, using the Vive as a starting point for tracking this seems pretty natural. So, definitely seems like some Vive hacking in the future could be super fun related to this. That is weird. There's like a bit of waxy buildup on this roller, I'm just noticing. I'll take a look at that in a sec. So... this is all harder now that I've taken the other half off. This was really the wrong order to do things in. Can I get this back on? Yeah, okay. Let's take this side off first. Alright. LED wiring comes out like that. And we can put the shells aside. So here's one shell. And this should just raise out. Alright. This is another thing we can do anytime now. I finished doing all the scraping and cleanup on all the shells. So we can go prep the shells with LED strips. And then we just have these wired up shells with some lighting. That's kind of a fun shot. Okay. That's better. This is what we're trying to do. So here is the winch with its motor driver. So this is pretty much just an effort to keep all the 24-volt wiring kind of centralized. So I think this is all 20 gauge. I think I've got some 20 gauge that so this is all like 20 gauge with silicone insulation. It's nice wire, but I think I've got some that has thinner silicone but is still 20 gauge that I might use instead of this. Oh wait, actually this is thicker than 20 gauge. This is like 16 gauge or something for the power coming in. So this is the AC power wiring harness. It's a little sad that I use the same color wire for all of this, but I don't have a lot of different colors of silicone wire. It's mostly white. So those go to the power supply. They do have heat shrink to label the different connections. So then I've got 24 volts coming out. There's there's a ground and a power here, so there's a pair of wires going to where that terminal block used to be over here for getting 24 volts into the H-bridge board. There's another red wire that actually goes straight into the emergency stop switch, and then the other end of the E-stop is wired to this little black wire, which then goes to the regulator up here. So can we see that better? I guess this will give me another data point for the copyright bot test, because now I'm using the room microphone, and there's actually a little bit of music, but I don't know if anybody can hear it. It's really subtle, and I'll get a chance to see if that shows up. Man, why is this wire so hard to see? This black wire in the shadows. I'm kind of confused about why I'm seeing... Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. Just had to remember how this worked enough to explain it. So, it's a 3-terminal regulator. We'll probably want to check the datasheet to make sure... Well, actually no. I'm sure the right one is output. Even under that epoxy, it looks like that one's going to the red wire, and I know the red wire is 5 volts. So that left pin is 24 volts input. That's just insulated from everything else. The middle pin is ground, which is soldered directly to the ground plane. And then the right pin is soldered to both another little black wire, which goes off to the microcontroller board, and it's soldered to the edge of this capacitor here, which powers this level shifter board, or level shifter chip, which is just like an octal buffer. Semiconductors work by semi-magic. Yeah, kind of. There's a lot going on in there, a lot of process control. Oh, interesting. Tsunami Juan says that the voltage you drive those inductive proximity sensors at can matter quite a big deal. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do the wiring exactly like this, but this general strategy of sticking on the DC-DC on this corner, I think I'm still going to do that. It's obviously not elegant, but there's room there, and it doesn't seem to be in danger. So maybe that's the thing to do that little bit of prep, and then put some epoxy on there, and then call it a stream. So let's put this aside. Easier said than done. Alright, that big heavy old thing will be over there. So, these are all very cheap and nasty motor drivers that I got from Amazon. They actually have a pretty great chip on there, but the breakout boards were very badly made. They had just a bunch of soldering issues, and then the installation between the heatsink, well, it was just a bad situation. Like the heatsink, this is just anodized aluminum. It was just too electrically conductive and too thermally insulating, whereas you want the opposite. So I tried to fix that by using this thermally conductive and electrically insulating tape between the heatsink and the board, and cleaned it off really well. Because there were just like solder splashes and stuff everywhere. It was pretty bad. One of these was on crooked enough that I wanted to reflow it and move it back a little bit. So anyway, these need a little bit of prep. They'll need some wires soldered from here to the now much larger capacitor, but I glued in the capacitors ahead of time because I figured that would be easier, so I'll put these wires in after mounting this board. But before mounting the board, I can do the onboard wiring, which will be making a place for the DC-DC converter, connecting its output to the local 5-volt rail here with that little orange wire, and then adding some slightly higher gauge wire to connect this to the off-board stuff. Beer, celery, and cheese, yeah. There were some other things like chips and salsa and yogurt. And I'll be checking my entire grocery history into GitHub. Thank you. All right, well. I think we pretty much just want to do that. Carve out a ground right around the rear wheel of the wheelie bin. This is still in the way. Alright, for this, I want the microscope and a sharp knife. Had some pineapple and you got an 80s party, yeah. Oh man, I think the last pineapple I had was actually in the form of pineapple ice cream, and it was amazing. Yeah, every once in a while there's like food photography shoots in this building, and so this time there was some ice cream left behind that was quite delicious, and some of it was pineapple. Alright, let's see the dot matrix on their silkscreen printer. So that's the 5 volts that obvious decoupling capacitor right there. I think we can also pick it up off of here. I was avoiding the 5-volt pin on here on the other board because I think I lifted a trace. Let's see how it's doing here. That one looks better. We can double check it with the meter. Just have to put some actual probes in the meter. I still have the alligator clips on from that test we were doing. Alright, welcome back to the stream. This one might not be super long. I know I've been streaming a little more than usual the past few days. We actually have a lot of bot to assemble, so there's certainly some content. I was experimenting with taking the chat box off that front title card, but I was realizing that's also how I know when the chat box actually works correctly. Anyway, welcome back. A slightly different microphone setup here so that I can roam around a bit and also maybe ignore some more of the room noise. You might notice there is a little bit of music in the room, and this is partly, I'm kind of curious how many decibels does it actually take for the YouTube copyright flagger robot to actually take something down. So this is me doing my best to exclude the copyrighted content. Let's see if they still take down this stream. We'll find out. But anyway, welcome back, anyone who's showing up. We already have a comment from, oh, I'm struggling to pronounce your username, sorry. Abtastlamet, I think. Asks why I'm streaming so late. It's like 3 in the morning where they are, and they have university in the morning. I'm sorry, I know that it's probably terrible times in a lot of time zones. That's how time zones work. But I don't currently have a schedule. I just try to stream at various times. But I should do some more that are in the morning for me here so that they're less late for people. So I appreciate the feedback. I often just stream whenever it's convenient over here, but if it's convenient for you at a different time, let me know, and I'll try to take that into account. And there's also always archives. You probably already know about this, but if you go... So actually on Twitch, like right as soon as the stream ends, you can access the archives and view the stream from the beginning. In YouTube, you need to wait a few hours for them to re-encode the video, but then they'll have a regular video upload that you can watch with the stream. Oh, I see. The name I was struggling to pronounce was actually a German translation of my name for some reason. But okay, I'll take it. And then Johnny in YouTube chat says that it's perfect timing for them. They just got home. Well, that's cool. Glad that time zones sometimes work out well. So we've got a bunch of robot assembly to do. Let's see, let's switch to the mobile camera. This is Cloud. He's the cat in the box recovering from his leg surgery. And I was going to maybe start the stream with letting him out and hanging out with him a bit because he's just been jonesing to play. I think maybe he is actually still. I thought he was going to stay asleep, but... Because he's like... With a little bit of isopropanol and then putting a... I wanted to add another extra layer of insulation since I don't entirely trust the solder mask, so I added some Kapton tape around this. Oh, good question. Jonathan just got here and they're wondering what I'm doing. Yeah, actually, so this stream has been a little bit more experimental. I was trying out some audio settings, and I'm trying to see if the YouTube copyright bot will get me taken down if there's like any audio in the background. That's kind of an experiment going on here. But, and then we spent a bunch of time fussing with the cats, answering questions while I followed around the cat that's recovering. And so what I'm doing now is, these are motor drivers, they're H-bridges. If we switch to this camera. And these go in the winches. I'm just doing a little bit of modification on them. I've already done some modification to clean them up and remount the heat sinks. Here I'm mostly just adding a 5-volt power supply and wiring that up, getting them ready to mount. Yeah, there's been lots of cat fussing on this stream. Oh, Ryan says scraping solder mask. Yeah, pretty much. No cat fuzzing. I can only fuzz the cloud. Oh, so actually... Oh, there's something else I've got to do tonight. I've got to make sure to feed Luna soon, because she is actually not supposed to have anything to eat after 10, because she's getting spayed tomorrow. So I've got to drop her off for surgery in the morning, and she's not supposed to eat after, I think it's 10 tonight. So I have to make sure to feed her and Tuco soon. I can feed boxcat separately because he's boxcat. I'm looking forward to Cloud not being boxcat. Ah, I'll see you later, K. Temkin. Always nice to see you around. Oh, nice. A new comment from Asfandar Salim Butt in the YouTube chat, who says they're new to the channel and just wanted to say my videos are cool. Well, thanks so much. Always good to see a new face. Got 72 folks in the YouTube channel right now, and how many do we have in Twitch? We only have 9 folks watching on Twitch. The YouTube channel has been a lot more popular so far, but I still like running both because there are certainly some different features available on each side. That piece of tape was way too big, but alright. Can I salvage that? Let's dodge the fingerprints. Alright, so these obviously all need trimming, but that covers the area that I wanted to cover. Good old train. Okay, so the whole thing's covered, and now we just want a little cutout for the area we care about, and I'm going to do that under the microscope. Should I just score these all and then grab them all with tweezers? That might be faster. I need to just build up my skills for just doing everything with the tip of the X-Acto knife, right? There we go. where's that little piece? Okay. I guess for all the cats that we've been doing on the stream, I could feed the cats on the stream. You'd probably actually get to see Tuco and Luna then. Ah, I really like cutting Kapton under a microscope. There's just something about how the skin kind of squishes down and then finally kind of parts, and then you can just see it in the tiny changes in curvature that affect the light reflections. Super nice. That part would be easier with tweezers for sure. There we go. I think now we just want to tin this. Oh, Tuco and Luna are making some trouble over there. Oh, Ryan asks, so we're just making a hole in the solder mask, and now we're re-insulating it with tape. Apparently when I skipped to the present, I missed some important detail. Yeah, not re-insulating it, just additionally insulating it. I'm going to have 24 volts right on top of ground here, and I don't trust just the solder mask on this board because the overall fabrication of this board is ridiculously low, so I just wanted some additional insulation, hence the Kapton. And then... oh, yeah. Oh, and then as for the temperature on the iron, what do I have it set to? 750 Fahrenheit right now. This one I've been mostly leaving it here, but yeah, sometimes it's useful to nudge it up or down a little. There's always too much junk on this desk. Ah, this really needs flux pen before I do this. That's about as good as I can do with my current grip on things. Let me try. It'd be great if I had more than one pin I was soldering down here. Because I really want this solder joint to be good, and I'm not going to achieve that by wiggling it around like this. How did I do this last time? I did have 2 other wires I was soldering to this, but I don't think they helped that much structurally. And I added epoxy, but I don't think I did that. Well, oh wait. Maybe that is what I did. Maybe the sequence here is tack it down, then epoxy it, then go back and do the real wiring. That's also consistent with me wanting to wrap up the stream soon, because I can just tack them all down, put some epoxy like in that gap, and especially right there on the back here, and then move on. Oh, blue tack, says Mikkel. Yeah, probably. I don't know if it would hold up this much weight, but yeah, let's give that a shot. That's a good idea. Oh yeah, and I kind of got behind on the resume discussion, but yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about like trying to get in the door at large companies, then you want to be looking at buzzwords basically. If you're thinking about, I mean, basically writing a resume just depends so much on who you're trying to communicate with and like what the company is. But if you're not getting your resume into the hands of the right people, then it could just be a matter of having the right words and sentences on it, as stupid as that is. Is that actually going to help? That's doing better. Oh, that is doing so much better. I was a little shy, but that's the point we're looking for. That is a good joint. Oh, dudes, chill out. Tuco. They can just hurt each other until I feed them. That's sad. I should probably feed them. The telltale signs of blue tack that's been hot. Alright, well, let's do more of that. I think that works. I still need to epoxy it, but now we don't have to worry about heating the epoxy quite so much. Yeah, you can't just list every type of thing you've designed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends so much on who you're talking to, but something where maybe you can list, like, well, here are the things that I am most proud of or that I most want to use in my new job as, like, core skills or something. But then here's, like, kind of a walkthrough of the stuff that you've actually done and maybe a way that they know how to think about it or know how to, like, get what they want out of it and or ask you more about it. Because like once you're past like thinking about getting into the filter, then you're thinking about like how do you start the conversations that you want to have during the interview and like talk about stuff that you can really shine in, that kind of thing. I'm just kind of trying to like squidge this in so that the board is approximately flat on there. It is not especially accurate. Probably should have put some solder on that pad first, actually. Let's do that. Let's do the thing again where I tack it down and then use the blue tack. So I think that'll actually work out better. So a little solder on the middle pin, then some solder on here. That's not as clear as I'm used to them being either. There's still some solder mask on that right side. Let's scrape at it a bit. I don't know how much extra copper that opened up, but I think it's going to be enough. Just trying to get the orientation about right, and then I put on the blue tack. Yeah, it is nice to just already know all the right people and not have to look for a job, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity, unfortunately. That's not pretty, but maybe it's fine. I think I'm gonna stop fussing with it. I think that's fine. All right. 2 down, 1 to go. And then I'll mix up some epoxy. Put that on before signing off for the evening. Yeah, so much of it is social and who you can meet. It is weird, like, I mean, the first job I had after graduating, like I had some jobs before graduating college, and I did some contracting stuff on my own. The first like full-time like regular software job I had was at VMware, and that was definitely, like, I still had to interview for that, and like it was a terrible full-day interview process and all that, but I also knew someone there who like told me about like, well, this is kind of like what it's like, and got me interested in it. I think they got like a referral bonus or something for like mentioning the place to me. But I mean, that's like very different from like knowing somebody who asks you to work for them. This is just like a way that new college grads can stumble into similar jobs together. This is not getting hot enough. Let's tune that a little bit and then focus on preheating that pad. Oh, and I should mention, if you aren't familiar with what these things are I'm putting on there, they're these cute little 3-terminal DC to DC converters made by Murata. So they work just like a 7805 regulator or just any old 3-terminal regulator you're familiar with, where you put power in on one side, you get power out on the other side at a different voltage. But instead of just burning all the power as heat, these are actually switching regulators. And Murata actually has a nice selection of modules. Some of them even have the coils embedded in the circuit boards. These, you might be able to see the coil there, and then the control chip is on the opposite side. Control chip, the diode, and the capacitors. There's the focus plane. Yeah. Tsunami1 says, I'm not interested in working at big companies these days unless I'm working at as a contractor for a small period of time. I understand that. Big companies, it's really hard to keep any kind of mental health in, from my experience, if it's a place where, like, it just feels like the big companies, like when you work there, they exist to kind of slurp out all of your creativity and kind of own it for themselves. And so if that's fine, if it's like, well, you weren't really interested in doing that on your own anyway, maybe that's fine. I don't know. I guess there are a lot of reasons not to work for big companies, but one of the first that I came across was that it seemed like, I mean, you can find this with small companies too, like a startup where you're not really aligned with the founder's values. You can just spend a ton of your time working on something that you ultimately don't care at all about. And if you get other useful skills or money or whatever from it, then maybe that's fine, but you should kind of know what you're getting into. And yeah, from my experience, big companies, or at least the ones that I have seen or worked at or can imagine, they wouldn't really give me the kind of experience that I could handle. They feel way too extractive of the kind of thing that actually matters to me. That's fine. Right, I think this is fine. It looks fine from the side. I think I'm going to mix up some epoxy, put on some epoxy, feed the cats. Maybe I'll end the stream before feeding the cats. I don't know how well feeding the cats translates into useful stream content. Ow, this is gross. I mean, I'm going to put epoxy over that anyway, but blue tack sometimes does this when it gets hot. It does not want to come off cleanly. All right. Soldering iron off, epoxy iron on. I kind of want to use a glue syringe for this. Good tiger. Okay, I don't think we'll need the microscope that much. Let's focus on this area. We, in fact, already have a glue syringe over here that is full of E6000, but that is too soft. I've been using this for just like holding in screws and stuff, but for stuff that I want to be more rigid, I've been using, well, either 5-minute or 30-minute epoxy. Since I'm going to bed anyway, I'm going to use 30-minute epoxy. Well, maybe not going to bed, but like not working on this until morning at least. Okay, this one is getting a little hard. SC Drager, I think, said, I learned to never use blue tack when soldering an IC socket. It's too goopy. Yeah, I think I sometimes forget how easily it reacts to heat and just end up putting it too close to the thing I'm soldering. Oh yeah, there was beer. Yeah, no, it was like some new beer. Like, I'm used to drinking like Lagunitas IPA these days, and I like IPAs, but Zach doesn't like IPAs, and we were looking for like maybe like a light beer to try, and so he picked up some Michelob, not like the regular kind, but there was like some kind of, I don't know, something fancier sounding, I don't know, Michelob Supreme or something, I don't know. I'll try it and see if it tastes good. I have not actually tasted a huge number of different kinds of beers, since I think at some point I realized I liked IPAs, and for a while I was really into porters, like dark beers. I feel like I'm less into them now since I feel like they're usually too sweet for me. But yeah. Beer is good. I think once I discovered how much I liked hops, I was just like, give me all the hops. All the hoppy beer. If I'm feeling more precise, I will actually weigh out this epoxy, but I think for small amounts, I don't really have a good scale for that, and I usually just eyeball it. I hope I made enough. I think this will be enough. Beers are so incredibly variable. Yes. Yeah, no, the first time I tried beer, I was like, I think I actually would have been underaged in the US, but I was like visiting Canada, and my friend there offered me a beer, and I hadn't tried it. Like, I wasn't, I was like rebellious in different ways, and I didn't really take up underage drinking or anything. But then when I first tried a beer in Canada, that didn't really make me want to try for a long time, and it wasn't, because I guess it just wasn't something I liked. I don't even remember what kind it was, but I think it was probably a combination of me being young and not giving it a chance, and also it not being probably one that I would have liked anyway. I'm always going to get bubbles in this syringe. And it was like later when I was in college in Boulder, and not even like, because I didn't turn 21 until kind of late in college, and I don't know, so I didn't really develop much of a beer taste, even though I was in this city that actually had some great beers. So it really wasn't until I moved to California and had some coworkers that were more into beer that I actually got more of a taste for it. Yeah. Okay, that's not super helpful. Maybe I'll just use this. I was gonna like wipe this off the front of the syringe, but no luck there. I'm just kind of putting little fillets at the corner and then a bead along the back. Is that focusing at all? Sorry. Let's start with that. I'm going to try that on these other boards and then see how I feel about it. I'm also going to stand them up like this so that the epoxy doesn't all just flow down the heatsink. Or maybe even down like this so that it flows into the pins a little bit. Because I don't want to get it all over the pins, but I want it a little bit in that gap. So maybe that's the way to achieve it. Yeah, the air bubbles in this syringe are annoying. Usually I can just mix up a big enough pile of epoxy that I can avoid that. Alright, these are both like that. Yeah, I think I might have enough. I got a couple of small air bubbles in there. Oh, good questions from Mikkel, who asks where's the input coming from and where's the output going from the DC-DC. Well, if you're wondering why they're not connected, I just haven't added those wires yet. I'm doing that after the epoxy. But the input is coming from the 24-volt power supply. So I could just wire that directly to the same 24 volts the motor driver is getting, but I wanted to wire that through the emergency stop switch, so it actually goes out on a separate wire. And then the 5-volt output goes both to an external wire that will go to the motor or to the microcontroller board, and it goes to this onboard level shifter, which generates the 5-volt. Why is this so out of focus? I don't know what the servo AF is trying to focus on, but it's not useful. So this is just like a buffer chip that generates the 5-volt control signals for the H-bridges, and so it also powers that. But yeah, it's basically just like the 5-volt power supply for the whole bot. And I'm just putting it here because mechanically it's convenient. Because this is a spot where it can physically exist without getting damaged. That's already dripping. That's fine. Alright, maybe I might have to babysit these a little bit as they start to dry, but I'm going to try to just lean them up like this. Alright, well this is about where I was planning on wrapping this one up. I think I could use a break from the stream, and I wanted to try to keep this one short in case everything gets taken down by the YouTube police. So Mikkel's asking what the cure time is. It's 30-minute epoxy. So it's like, doesn't have full strength for a while, like probably a day, but it will be hard pretty quickly. I also have 5-minute epoxy, but for stuff where I don't need it to be super fast, it's nice to give it a little extra cure time to flow better. Oh yeah, Ryan asks if these might be useful to power things from 18-volt tool batteries. Yeah, for sure. I think each one of these is rated at 2 amps. Is it? It's either 1 or 2. I thought it was 2. Maybe I can pull up a data sheet. Helpful if the part number was obvious here. I don't think that's the part number. Oh, this is it. Oh, they bought these from Oki? The manufacturer part number starts with OKI. Is that Oki Data or... Oh, the name of the product is the Okami series. Ooh. So this is what we're dealing with. $4. This is the 3v3 version. 78SR. That's what these are called. The 5 there probably didn't help, but... Oh yeah, I think this is it. 7.5 watts, so not quite 2 amps, 1.5 amps. Yeah, so it's basically designed to be a drop-in replacement for a 7805 regulator, just don't need a heatsink. Up to 36 volt input. I think I'm a little behind on the chat. Oh, Brian Rosales was asking on YouTube chat why the video would get taken down. YouTube automatically scans videos for any music that they have any kind of digital signature for, and if they discover it, then it's basically up to the copyright owner what happens to the video at that point. Like, you don't actually have control over how it's monetized. You can, like, I can delete it, but like other people could start running ads on my video and getting paid for it and that kind of stuff, which I could just put up with, or I could delete the video, depending on what they choose to do. It's kind of a stupid system. And YouTube doesn't really manually review these things unless the video is especially popular. So I generally try to just like be really strict about not having any audio that, or like music that can come out the same stream that YouTube is processing. But this time I was less strict about that, and there was some like environmental music in the same room that I was not getting a lot of, but there was a tiny bit of that, and so I'm curious if the bot would pick that up. So it's an experiment. We'll find out. It's probably not going to get taken down, but this will help me calibrate how paranoid I have to be about the robots, you know? On Twitch chat, the pet project says whenever I use 5-minute epoxy, by the time I get stuff together, it's already cured. Yeah, that's a real problem. Okay, this is flowing. This is mostly not making a mess. There's one place where I should keep it from making a mess here. Oh. Right there. Okay. Well, I'm going to mostly leave these alone. I might try to fuss this very slightly before leaving it alone, but I'm mostly leaving it alone. Anyway, thanks for joining for a short, weird, slightly more cat-related than usual stream, but I'll be back to whatever usual content in the coming days. So, Mikkel says basically it's a case-by-case thing requiring a lawsuit about the YouTube thing. Yeah, I mean, they have a semi-automated appeals process, but it really sucks, and a lot of the stuff that YouTube does, there just isn't really any recourse if you're a smaller creator, so it's kind of annoying. Anyway, I think that's it. Happy hacking, everyone. Special thanks to all the regulars, all the folks who send me money, all the folks who send me hardware, and all the folks who just share my videos with other people. It's all super useful, and it keeps this going. And Nexus says the appeals process is automated deny. That's been my experience so far, yeah. Yeah, it kind of sucks. I had a video that ended up in the system because there was some background audio from an installer from the product I was tearing down, which was stupid. I try to be careful about muting that stuff nowadays. Anyway, I will see you all next time. Happy hacking, folks.